Here we go. Welcome to episode 317 of Control Talk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending May 17th, 2020. This is your host, Eric Stromquist, and I am not joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only Kenny Smyers. He is off on one of his secret agent sort of missions and will be back with us next week. But I did have a chance to catch up with two really innovative thinkers earlier in the week, Scott Cochrane from Cochrane Supply and Aaron Gorka, young gun Aaron Gorka. Aaron is one of the younger superstars in our industry. He's with Ant Technology and Aaron HVAC out of Canada. So without further ado, let's just tap into that interview we did. So Aaron, I'm so pumped up, man. Not only to have you on the show this week, I have one of my favorite people in the industry, one of the great thinkers, one of the innovators, your friend and mine, Scott Cochrane. So Scotty, welcome to the show.
Hi, Eric and Aaron.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you here,
Friday,
brother.
guys. Happy Friday.
Right?
Yeah, brother. Well, listen, Scotty, you tell me you're at the office, and I guess first thing I'd like to talk about is tell us about things at Cochrane Supply and what's going on with you guys, and how are you guys coping with the COVID-19?
Yeah, Eric. So first and foremost, my entire staff is safe and healthy, first and foremost. So
good job.
We're happy about that. That was our primary objective. And then secondarily, of course, we've been able to operate throughout the entire pandemic. Keep the doors open, keep shipping material, keep taking orders, keep answering questions. So we've been working pretty much the whole time. We have probably about half the main staff, like the corporate staff, working from their homes, but all of our 6 locations do have full counter staff now back, and we've been operating sort of a locked door policy. And just this week, we are testing, letting some customers come back into the counter areas with a bunch of risk mitigation built into that. And so we're testing that this week. So far, that's working well. And we plan to invite customers back into the branches to get their parts next week at all of our locations.
So Aaron is texting me here going, hey, have Scott show you. So is there any way you can sort of show us what you're up to and keep talking to us while you're doing it? But
sure, yeah. So I'm going to switch to my phone video real quick.
Sweet.
And hopefully you can see it. Cochrane Supply.
Yeah.
And as you can see, most of our offices are empty.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I know with us, Scotty, while you're walking with us, we've had most of our people working from home anyway. It was kind of a perk. They would work from the IP phone. So it was pretty easy for us to transition to, our sales staff working from home. In our case, we have our counter people and our warehouse people, plus a couple of execs at the office. Scotty, did I lose you, buddy?
No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Okay.
Great. Okay, great. So let me show you guys what we're doing. So as I mentioned, our offices are primarily empty as most of our staff is still working from home. But we did get our warehouses open and have been staying open. And this is our counter area here in Madison Heights, Detroit. And let me show you some of the things we're doing. First and foremost, this is a customer door, which none of us are supposed to go in and out of. Hi, come on in. Good.
6 feet.
Did you just open the door, the forbidden door?
I do, but the doors, yeah. So I use my hands. So see, we are open, but we're requiring masks and gloves. We're limiting it to 3 people per, and of course we're still offering curbside pickup as we have been. Okay, and then this is the customer only door, which I'll have to sanitize after I go in. And then as you come
breaking all the rules. breaking all the rules.
As you come in, you can see that we have the X's on the floor. And then we got these handy dandy sneeze guards.
Those are really cool.
Sides.
Those are
Yeah.
really cool, Scott.
And then for anybody who happens to show up without gloves or a mask, we're giving those away, right? So those are, we ask people to put those on right away. We got rid of the coffee, closed the bathrooms. And that's kind of how we're doing it.
Really. Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the goal is to kind of like, as you know, Eric, at the counters, a lot of questions, a lot of people have support needs, and they like to come in and work with our team. And we wanted to make that available to them, but yet we want to make sure people still feel safe in these times. So.
And is today the first day you were opening the counters outside of curbside pickup where people come in? Today's the day? Is that what I heard you say?
Today was our trial day. So I'm going to hop on I'm going to go back into my office now. I'm going to leave this.
Well, now while you're doing that, Aaron, let me ask you from your perspective, what are you guys doing? Because you're doing the contracting side, plus you've got your, manufacturing side. So what are you guys doing, Aaron?
Well, the software side slowed down a fair bit, at least from a development side. It's the first time we haven't been actively developing the software in about 5 years. That was kind of due to laying off and holding cards, to be honest with you. As the contracting side we don't know how long it was going to last. So we did have some layoffs throughout the original process. And, again, it's all about the future side of it. Positively, not having a developer to work with you, we haven't had any problem. The software is totally stable. So that's great news, right? Especially when you don't have anybody to do the work originally. Contracting side, we're from a service side, like most of the people, anybody listening there in it, as long as the sites are open, we kept moving.
What are you guys doing to take precautions though? Kind of like what Scott did on his side. What are you guys doing from your contracting side?
Constantly buying masks and gloves for the guys in the field. We wrote up a couple policies, procedures throughout it that, we expect people to follow. We call our customers and are very, very clear with them what we expect for our employees and our techs going out into there. It's been fairly standard. Everyone's kind of on that same PPE, and respecting distancing is kind of the key we're finding out there.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that the three of us have in common is we're all three business owners, right? And in addition to wanting to do the right thing to protect our people, do you guys fear at all about the legalities of it if we don't take steps and have a process that it could come back and bite us if somebody gets the virus or whatever while they're on our payroll?
I don't know, Eric. It is so crazy out there in terms of liability right now, right? And where it lands. And I think we're such a little piece of the big pie. I'm not as worried about liability. I do, though, feel that there is a danger out there to certain individuals in terms of that virus and who it might affect. And, my primary goal is to keep all my people safe throughout the pandemic, first and foremost. So like us opening that counter and the steps we took, we're there not just, we're there to protect our people first. And now as you start to think about you going into the spaces, other people's spaces, now you got to think about, okay, we got to protect those. It's our job as somebody walking into that space to take precautions before we do to protect the people that might be in that space. These are like common courtesies now for people who are out in the field, if you may. Going to job sites or working with different people, it's a two-sided coin here, right?
Right.
You're your own, and then out of respect for others, you need to wear a mask and glove when you're, in certain situations.
No, agreed. Well, Scott, I want to cycle back around. You wrote a really good article in my opinion, for Ken Sinclair's AutomatedBuildings.com called Pressure.
Thank you.
And well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And Aaron, I want you to chime in on this too, because it seems like, maybe one of the silver linings out of this whole pandemic, at least for our industry, is it's going to create all kinds of new opportunities to make the buildings safer. So Scott, would you talk about your article a little bit, some of the things you're seeing, some of the opportunities that may be being created for the integrators? And Aaron, I want you to hop in on that too.
Sure. So pressure, right? I was, I wrote the article because I was feeling a lot of pressure in April. I don't know about you all, right? But April sucked.
Oh yeah.
April
Lots of
sucked.
pressure.
Oh my God. It was like every day it was ripping my heart out and stepping on it. It was just like bad news every millisecond, right? And so I was feeling a lot of pressure and I couldn't get an article out. And then it came to me, pressure, right?
Was this after you knocked the guy over in the
No,
grocery store, right?
no, what really got it out of me was when I read the ASHRAE recommendations for infectious articles or
Yep.
infectious aerosols. And what I took away from that position paper that they released mid-April was simply this, which is something that when I learned temperature control, what I was told from the very beginning was the only way to control temperature in a building properly is to control pressure, right? So we've been controlling pressure the whole time, primarily for temperature control reasons, right? To move air effectively, efficiently. Like pressure, we set the pressure in a building to be an efficient pressure, not a safe pressure, an efficient pressure, right? Static pressure in the building is how we know where air movement is going, right? And so so from that then, in my teaching in turn, as I'm teaching my young people about pressure right now in terms of temperature controls, and it all came together. This whole, like, to me, if you look at what's going to happen to the HVAC industry is it's almost like just take energy management and we're just going to park it over here for a few years, and health and safety are going to dominate. And in health and safety, you're going to find pressure is the key. I mean, and it's not just pressure that matters though. Pressure is that data value that we need to understand things, but the automation system, the BAS system, is the only way you're going to be able to control pressure. Because the other thing that any temperature control engineer can talk about when you talk about static pressure in a building is you cannot control that unless you got the whole friggin' building inside of a digital envelope that you can see and adjust things in. There is no way to move airflow unless you have a way to get rid of it, right? So the only way to do that is with BAS. And people don't, and right now people want to get in the buildings now. They don't want to wait for a big mechanical retrofit or a new filter system or UV this. No, they want a BAS engineer to come in and guarantee them 20 airflows a day or something of that nature. And they can do it with the existing system by using the BAS system. So the integrators and the BAS people have this huge, awesome responsibility now of helping the building operators make it safer by increasing the ventilation rates with the existing equipment, even before added filtration and all the other things that ASHRAE recommends, right? So we've been really advocating getting people out. Another thing I just want to mention is, Cochrane Supply is a distributor who sells to a lot of different temperature control people, building control people. We've been selling a lot of pressure sensors. Go figure. So. So
they're failing out there, right? And when it fails and you're doing your PMs, you and you don't even need to be on site to find those pressure sensors broken. You can do it remotely, safely from afar, as long as you have this, obviously the secure remote access in there. And we find the same thing. All pressure sensors, all sorts of different things are failing out there that need to be fixed. And the condos are calling us as well and saying the same thing. Hey, listen, it's occupied all the time. People are saying my hallways smell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and let's break it down why it's so important, the controlling the pressure for the safety. Cause I read the ASHRAE paper too, Scott, and, they're talking about aerosol. So it's not just, now you're playing with positive and negative pressure in different parts of the building. Like a utility closet might have a different pressure requirement than than the rest of your space. So it gets pretty sophisticated, doesn't it?
It does. It sure does, Eric. The Joint Commission, which is a group that makes recommendations to hospitals in terms of how they operate a hospital for safety, they came out with a recommendation right before the pandemic that asked for hospitals to create a negative pressure in all dirty rooms. Yeah. Well, if you follow that standard, a dirty room is like a janitor's closet. So that means it's going to require a pressure sensor. It may need a device on the outside of it to let you know that it's in a negative pressure before you walk in. And it's going to probably require a potentially, a different way of doing air distribution within that room in order to accomplish it. These are going to be major HVAC challenges coming up. And as you probably know, Eric, and you guys, Aaron, you guys know I work with a lot of building owners directly, and I consult with large property holders. And let me tell you, this is at the forefront of the conversations right now. This is at the forefront because they're getting a lot of pressure to get people back in the buildings. And immediately
Yeah.
they're turning to the facilities folks and saying, hey, man, what's up with this HVAC system? What are we going to do here, right? So, so there's just a big swing, I think, towards momentum in our industry for this. So.
Right. And I love it, Scott. And I think you're dead nuts on it. I mean, it's not going to be so much talking energy savings now. It's not even going to talk, it's going to be talking about how can the building be the safest place for people to come? Because that's what's going to get people back in the buildings. If an owner can say, our building is safer because of this, this, and this, they're going to come back in. So I suspect that at a certain level, and Aaron, maybe this gets to what you guys do as well, being able to document that and show it. I mean, that's seems like it's going to be part of their marketing plan if you're a building owner going forward.
Yeah, Eric.
That's it. We had
companies doing that. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
No, we had the same meeting with one of our biggest clients yesterday. Actually, it was past the pressure side, more into the filters and the UVC side of it, which is not cheap and not straightforward either. I mean, this isn't so much on the building automation side, but it is, it's part and parcel as a solution provider, right? And it's the same thing. They just want to catch those microns. They want to kill those microns. They want to make sure that when they bring their people back, it's going to be safe for them, right? And they're doing it across all, 3 of their offices, kind of thing.
Well, it seems like it's creating great opportunities there for everybody. And, Scott, talk more about the aerosols, because, that ASHRAE paper was talking about aerosols and how I guess they can have the viruses pass easier from people to people. And again, and if you could sort of relate that back to what you're seeing in terms of pressurization and that opportunity that's being created.
Okay, so yeah, so one of the things I think we all understand is there's no way to pick up that virus in the air from a sensor. Okay,
exactly. Nope, I agree.
As an industry, and I mean, again, there may be new technology, but trust me, I've been looking for it. But I'm telling you, there is no way to put a sensor in the space and know if you have a problem or not, right? So we're not talking about like what we're used to in temperature control, where it's like, okay, we're going to react to a sensor. The sensor's going to tell us something, we're going to react. This is going to be a different scenario where it's going to be more like we're going to bring the system together to lower the risk by moving air faster out of the building. The exhaust air has got to get out of the building faster, okay, as a core strategy. And in doing that, we are not reacting to sensors per se. We may need to rely on analytics, that industry that has been devoted to energy efficiency, to turn around and take these KPIs and turn them into safe building standards based on air changes and things like that, right? Because we as an industry know what 100% outside air means, okay? And we know that building is going to be ventilated. If I'm at 100, I mean, we've all done casinos. We understand the power of 100% outside air, right? It'll keep you up all night. I mean, people used to think that they pump carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide or dioxide into hotel casinos. No, they just open up the outside air dampers. So
keep
really
them alert.
Yeah. So we need, as an industry, we're not going to be able to react to it as much as we'll be able to create scenarios that will give a better chance of getting the infectious aerosol out of the space quicker. And then hopefully our reporting and analytics can help it stand up as a viable option to reduce the risk of spreading a virus in a building, right? Another important thing I want to point out real quick on this topic, Eric, because this is where I'm really hoping we get some guidance. It'd be great if we heard from the CDC on what a healthy building might look like, right? So right now, I don't feel like we have a lot of guidance there. There are products approved by the CDC to be used to help mitigate the risk in buildings, but we don't really have an algorithm for a building, right? We have ASHRAE and OSHA and people like that are putting together these standards, but it'd be great if really the doctors came forward and gave us a little bit more guidance on the way they feel we should be doing this. You know what I mean?
It's a great point. It's a really, really
yeah, I
great
agree
point.
100% on that, Scott. That's I mean, any guidance on that stuff. And I love the fact, frankly, I energy savings is important as the industry. I've never found it very sexy or fun, to be perfectly honest, just out of my own personally. I like comfort. So I actually love the fact that we're going to be switching towards, health and safety and what is a healthy building, and treating it like your body kind of thing. I love that the industry is going to be forced into that animal away from the energy side, and your comment on the analytics. Again, that's just a totally different mindset than how everybody's looking at it, that has looked at it to date. So, it really is a nice brain shift to make there, Scott. So thanks. That's insightful.
Well, Aaron, talking about a brain shift, because I know Scotty and I don't handle as much equipment. I know you work with equipment, so you can probably speak to this. What about filtration, things like UV lights, ionizers and things like that? In your opinion, is that going to help?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. What I think is going to happen here is that like HEPA filters are really not retrofittable in most cases they're just too big, right? The equipment can't handle the pressure drop. On the pressure kind of comment here, you're right on the money with this one, Scott. It's cool. So you have to look at the higher MERVs, the MERV 13, 14, 15. And when you look at that, it's still only going to be catching of those small microns, like say influenza, right? We just got the best example we have, from the industry is the flu, right? Coronavirus is as close as it can be to that. So, that's the baseline that we have so far on it. And filters themselves aren't going to catch it all. And the equipment itself can't handle the filters that would need it. So we were talking, about increasing the MERV filter sizes. I mean, for an HVAC contractor, that's a nice extra, right? You have to change the filters more often to, again, maintain that building pressure, or the pressure drop across the coils in the equipment. So it's going to be really interesting and on that side of it. And the UVC, I think that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen or read about. Actually, I love the visual of it, of how it zaps like the DNA of the microorganism and basically just turns it into dust. You know what I mean? It deactivates the compound, so it's not, you basically, it's just, basic protein. The ionization one, there's a webinar, CGNA is putting on a webinar next week, I think on the 20th, that I'm going to sit in on. My understanding with the ionization is more about odor and like dust and like say pet hair and things like that, less about viral control, I think. But I could be wrong on that right now.
I know. I think, and again, I'm not an expert on either, but we handle IR. Scotty, I think you guys do too, which is an ionizer. And part of it is it's very similar to the UV. Stuff clings to it. It makes it fall down. It brings stuff out of the air. So it can bring particles and stuff like that too. That should help. But Scott, I want to cycle back around to you real quick because, again, you're talking with the building owners, and you can have all this stuff. You can be replacing your filters, and you can be putting all this stuff in to make the space safer. You can also be having your air changes more. But, to the people that are maybe not coming into the building because they're afraid, that doesn't mean anything unless somehow it becomes visible. And I'm curious, are you and your programmers and developers working on any sort of dashboards or anything like that that an owner could put in and help market that their building's safer?
Yeah, Eric. As we're, as a distributor, we typically are not actually doing the work. But I've been a privy to two different jobs where they are putting together a health dashboard for the building. It would be more of an HR type function, less of not as much of a, like for the occupants, but definitely some of the KPIs HR plan on using to encourage the occupants to come in, right, is kind of what I'm seeing. So, the challenge to enter the building for the companies that are looking at it right now, it's the whole company. It's the challenge, right? So it's HR, it's us, it's facilities, it's everybody. So I don't know if it's really our role as an industry right now to start dashboarding or saying, okay, come on in or not come in, that type of stuff. But we have KPIs that matter, right? Especially if you've done some clean room work in hospitals, right? The entry into a clean room and whatnot. So that kind of thinking, except at the whole building scale, and then with us feeding that to HR as a method to decide which areas people are going to go into and things like that within the building, right? That kind of stuff. So,
Right.
so
What
that
I,
is, yeah.
yeah, what I'm thinking, Scotty, is like I said, it's, there's a Chinese saying, I've said it a couple of times on the show before, that, with great chaos comes great opportunity. And I'm thinking, primarily about our contractors like Aaron and integrators, also distributors, right? Because if you think about, if I'm a building owner, that's the only question I care about now is how do I get people coming back into my building? And I think, it's not our job to say that the building's safe, but if we can give them the tools and the stories to be able to tell, they've got marketing people that can definitely, spend that however they need to spend it. So,
Right. Well, static pressure doesn't make a lot of sense to people, unfortunately, right?
yeah,
It's a minute calculation. It's a small number. Doesn't mean much, right? So I think it's going to be sensors like CO2
yeah,
and airflow, CFM and CO2. I think those will become KPIs that would dashboard nicely as indicators of whether or not a building has fresh air in it or not,
yeah. Yeah.
as an indicator of whether or not, this air has been sitting there or if it's moving.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Scott, because I think that people
Yeah.
can understand the fact that, well, if I'm in a small space and we're all breathing the same air, at some, like I'm on an airplane, at some point in time, I'm breathing the same air that everybody else is breathing.
Right,
So I
right.
think people can understand, to your point, hey, we've got this positive pressure. So we are sending all this air that people are breathing out and bringing new fresh air in.
Correct.
And so I think they can work with that. Now, the other one that I've been hearing a lot about, and wonder what you guys think about it, is that, from what I understand, that, people that are susceptible might have the virus, typically have a temperature, their body temperature is a little bit higher. And have you guys heard about or seen any of these systems where somebody walks in the building, you basically zap them with a temperature sensor, like an infrared or something, and then you can then a key performance indicator, if you've got your temperature's above a certain point, they bring you aside to screen you. I'm wondering if
Hey,
that's a
Scott,
viable thing.
that just reminded
It's
me.
being implemented, Eric. It's going in. So whether it's viable
Well,
or not, it's being put in a lot of places. It's primarily coming from the security industry. There was existing technology there. That was kind of a no-brainer for those companies. If you try to call one of them right now, they're like 6 months out to get you something. I mean, let's be honest. If you weren't in that business before, you're going to have a hell of a time just jumping into it. Not to mention, by the way, those are very complicated machines and not easy to set up or maintain, right? So, but no question, Eric, entry sensor systems are going in, they're being bought. Absolutely. That's a big part of this, is trying to keep the sick people out of your building. And yeah, there's a lot of technology. Let me tell you about another one I ran into just recently in a meeting. I didn't even know this was available, but it's being implemented by a large company. So what they're implementing is they're using Bluetooth technology on each individual in the building to know whether they're within 6 feet of each other. And if they do come within
Interesting.
6 feet of each other, this Bluetooth technology will alert them and alert the people who are running that area, and they will dispatch people to make sure that they don't, So like, what are they trying to do here? No, are they, you walk by the hall, do you get a demerit? No. It's more like when you get two people that just inadvertently are sitting next to each other and they don't realize that they're chatting away and they're like a foot from each other, right? And that's what they're trying to prevent when they bring people back into their offices and back into the factories is people just by accident just getting too close to each other. And then going back to the occupant, by having that system, what they believe is that occupants will feel more safe to come in because they'll have like a way of knowing if somebody's inside of their, they'll have an alarm on the 6-foot thing as well. So
Yeah.
it kind of gives the occupant more comfort in coming back, knowing that they've taken these mitigation steps to ensure that, again, they're not getting too close.
But I'm wondering, Scott, I mean, you bring up a great point, because we got all these diagnostics anyway with the smart watches and all that, can take our temperature. You kind of wonder at some point in time whether they'll just use that Bluetooth technology and be able to monitor the temperature that way too.
So I'm sure no surprise to you guys. It sounds like this war, this industry of IoT and how we do all this magic stuff that we're kind of dipping into now. the mobile device people. They're already on top of this, right? So your mobile
Mhm.
device will act as sort of a health beacon potentially in the future of your current conditions. And that's, you know, like in terms of that Bluetooth technology, that's something that's being considered, is to use the Bluetooth in your phone, you know, so that they're not adding more hardware and whatnot, maybe just an app on your phone. So I think the mobile device on the individual within the building, once again, is going to come out as an important KPI for the whole system to kind of get an idea of what am I dealing with here, right? Because we may not know if the disease is there, but we'll know if there are people in there. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
we may be able to pull some KPIs off their phone to know if they need to be isolated or moved or things like
Right.
that. So,
Well, it seems like, Scott, too, the fact that, getting back to, controlling the building, it seems like there's a pretty valid argument to make the BAS system sort of the hub of all this, right?
agreed.
Because we can bring that
Agreed.
stuff in. It's already
Yeah,
there.
you can throw in billions of dollars of technology and whatnot, but you know, if you don't control that ventilation properly, whew,
Yeah.
it
Doesn't
don't
matter.
matter if you're 6 feet or not. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, if you got
Yeah.
stagnant air, it could, you know, these airborne viruses apparently can float around for quite a while. I mean, so I think,
Honestly, guys, I'm sitting here listening, taking notes here, and there's a marketing package that would be, excellent from, like, say, for Canada Controls, even Scott, to say, hey guys, listen, here's a list of things that you guys can apply, or recommend to your customer base, for, again, that healthy building. Is your building healthy? And this is like a sales package of not necessarily opportunity, but, well, it is opportunity, but, making a building more healthy. Here are a bunch of different things you guys can use. And then the integrators who are creative, just figure out how to pull it together, you know what I mean, with that client, because they need to discuss this. They're already collaborating on everything you're mentioning, but like, you guys are going to know, Scott, these are like the thermal reading, the Bluetooth thing. These are all nifty tricks that we should be aware of as the contractors out there,
Well,
yeah,
Aaron, I'm wondering why at Ant Technologies, because you've got the software that that contractors are using to sort of document. Because at the end of the day, legally, in God we trust, and all else get data. So I'm kind of wondering from your guys' perspective, Aaron, with the Ant Technology software, would you guys build like a checklist in where you're checking the things like the pressure and all that then the contractor could then present to the owner and say, okay, here's the checklist, your pressures are within realms. And Scotty, I know you guys already do a lot of remote monitoring for people and your customers or your integrators, where hey, if the ventilation, the pressures get off, we're going to immediately notify you that you might have an unsafe uh, situation here.
that's exactly what a room pressure monitor does today. And again, you can apply that same concept to the building in terms of building pressure, and and putting up warning signals that the building's not pressurized properly and there may be stagnant air, as a reason not to enter. And all these things may come into play for sure,
Yeah.
as we go on. So I think that there's, and to Aaron, I do believe there's a market for these products, but I do want to emphasize that we are not doctors in our industry. And
No.
I don't want to say I can prescribe a healthy building, right? I don't feel like I'm in a position to tell somebody what a healthy building is. We have a lot of experience in building control systems and HVAC, and there are some existing technologies and new technologies that they should consider. And to your point, Aaron, that is where I feel like Cochrane Supply, what we're going to try and do over the next couple months is to, look at health and safety as a new business and start to bring products forward for people to consider that we think might help.
Yeah, we
Fix,
just launched
we're used to fix in our world. I think with this health and safety, I think we're going to have to settle for might help. You know what I mean? Not fix. Because
Recommended suggestions based on ASHRAE or whatever. To your point, Scotty, I don't think we want to take the liability on of guaranteeing that your building's healthy, but we can be aware of the best practices and provide the tools to implement the best practices.
For sure.
I think that we're right. And we need what is a healthy building is a great question. And I think I bet you analytics would provide information on that. I bet you, based on the sensors that are existing in the building, and then
Aaron,
you would have a pretty good.
Aaron, let me throw this word at you. I don't even want to call it a healthy building because I don't want it to get confused with a healthy environment, right, within a building. Because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the whole building and being healthy. We're talking about the environment within being healthy. And what is that? And again,
well, and each space is a different environment. A boardroom is different than somebody's closed office, which is different than an open plenum office, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
no, that's the word. That's the one. Dude, creating healthy environments within a building. I mean,
yes.
That there's your tagline as a contractor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or distributor. It doesn't really matter.
I believe the industry is going to adopt it, and we'll just start using it. I mean, I think healthy environment is something that everybody understands right now. And
well, I mean, if for the tree huggers of the world, I mean, a lot of cars off the road is making the environment, when you think about it from the old way of thinking about it, is doing great. With this COVID thing.
Let's never forget energy efficiency, Aaron. Never forget it. We just, like I said at the beginning, we're just going to move you over a little for a few months here, maybe a year. We'll bring you back. It's like always energy management, right? It's like, it's hot, it's cold, it's hot. Like, so.
Well, the way to do it now is the way to use the energy side of this is to evaluate what creating the healthier environments within the building. What is the energy effect of that? I mean, like, that's what we want. Like, that's what that'll get used for. It's like, okay, we can't stop monitoring it. We can't stop evaluating it. But what is the effect of a healthier environment within the building financially? I mean, that's, now we're using all our whole tool pouch. Right?
This will be the ultimate debate. The healthy environment meets the performance contractor.
Yeah.
Well, no,
I hate performance contracting. I don't like that business anyway. So.
Well, it was the same debate back when gasoline was, X amount of dollars a year. You got the energy crisis, and then Aaron's got buys a Hummer or a big gas guzzling car, right? It's a
oh yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, we're all willing to pay for energy as long as we get the benefits out of it, right? So I think but it's interesting because it seems like to both of our points, we're in this industry that is going to add another sort of quiver area of expertise or opportunity for us to come into work with people. And Scott, isn't it great that that a market and demand is being created for pressure sensors and stuff that's not so complicated. It doesn't require licensing and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to see opportunities coming back to us that aren't so complicated necessarily.
Agreed, Eric. And there's we've already built the buildings on static pressure control already. So we're not talking about major changes here. We're talking about tweaking what we already know and do every day, and maybe just fixing some stuff that's broken. Boom, you too can get 100% outside air and a bunch of air changes every day, right? Yeah. So obviously we're going to cause some havoc on energy. I gotta say we're also going to cause some havoc on some equipment. But again, this may be a good opportunity to update your equipment anyways, right? So.
Yeah. And I know Aaron's
Scott,
go ahead, Scott. Aaron.
What might be nice here too, again, because this is a mindset shift here, is again, you guys are both your companies are heavy on the training side, and there's tons of training webinars now. Again, maybe some thoughts that we could say, get our techs. Not every tech out there is, a forefront of technology and really motivated to learn themselves. You know what I mean? Let's not, let's be real with ourselves here. So a form of training and awareness training into what is a healthier environment and what to look for within your sensors and your pressures and stuff like that. How to identify what is good versus bad would probably be a really value added training seminar, webinar kind of thing right now, because not every tech out there who's in charge of the building is going to think like that. A lot of them are going to just business as usual it, right?
Yeah. So you want 100% outside air? No problem at all. We'll just take your outside air damper off and jack it open. That's not what we're talking about here. But good point, Aaron. Now, I guess, Scott, let me cycle back around to Scott, Aaron, because I think you bring up a good point, which is, Scott, you guys are known for your training. So speak a bit about what are you guys doing training-wise, and have, to Aaron's point, have you modified some of your training classes to include things like this?
Well, Eric, it's very fresh, and training is not something it doesn't move quite as fast as, potentially rolling out a new product or a new concept, right? So to answer your question, no, we have not created any new training around this yet. We are actively working with vendors, and we are actively working with people that we think are experts, again, not know yet. And we are rapidly trying to come up with a way to share this kind of information with people effectively. It's unfortunately, they're just, this is very new. And we as an industry were not prepared. And that's why I keep leaning on the old ways to fix it, because a lot of the new tech that you can deploy and some of that stuff, frankly, it's just so out there right now. To your point, Eric, it's just another piece of software, another license, it's just too much, right? We also have to respect the fact that a lot of the companies took a hit in our industry. They took a hit, and when we bring them technology that is hard, that's an investment. And so I don't feel like right now I want to go to my customers and ask for investments, right? I want to give them, right now I feel like the best thing we can do is simply give them some ideas to consider, and really just help them get back out there. Just get back out there. Dude, get your pajamas off, get out of your basement, go outside, and start talking to people. Because
why do I think you're talking to me when you say
basement? Guess what's never going to happen in your basement? Anything. Nothing. Zero.
Nothing.
Aaron, why do I feel like Scott's talking to me when he says
your little cave? It's time to come out.
I'm not going to show you that I'm wearing pajamas right now, guys. I know you're talking to me, Scotty. I know you're talking to me.
I got sweatpants on under here. Like, I got the shirt, but I got sweatpants on.
Well,
beauty of webinars.
Dude, I got the governor of Michigan chasing me around, like, go back to your house. Go back to your house. Working lady, I'm essential over here,
But Scott, as usual, I mean, I think you just gave us another huge piece. And, as we talk to our audience that, is in this business, right? Which is the other piece is it needs to be simple and it needs to be affordable. Your solutions need to be based on affordability, because people have taken a big hit. Yeah. And if you're coming out, trying to reinvent the wheel and asking for a big investment, your chances of being able to help and being successful are probably not as great as if you come across something like you're talking about. Let's make sure the static pressure sensors are right and do static pressure control.
Yep. I think
Scott,
so.
Do you think there would be, I mean, if we think of how engineers are speccing and all that jazz with the static pressures here, do you think that there's room, and maybe where, to put more of these in? Like, sometimes you put 2 outdoor air temperature sensors on the north and the south side, or east and west side, and average them, or even in more, know that it's hot on the west in the evening, and vice versa. Like, do you think there's room for static pressure sensors like that, like maybe even redundancy to help make sure it's correct, or anything like that, like changing the design up with more emphasis on it? Maybe it's a silly question.
No question. No, I think, Aaron, you're right. You're spot on. So the designers today should consider that. They should consider the pressure of the room. Negative,
like redundant, I mean? Yeah. And even
the use case of the building and the use case of the room, I think down the road, I don't think it's ready, but I think because of this pandemic and some of the byproduct of it, I would not be surprised if you were to control static pressure, at the VAV box level.
Sure.
To go to that level and to choose areas in buildings that you may decide to pressurize to ensure that it's a clean environment for whatever purpose. Again, who knows what we're going to run into in the operation of these buildings now, but hospitals are already doing this, right? So the hospital is,
we have a model.
A hospital is the most effective building at mitigate diseases, I mean, just because of the use of them, they've been through the years. And of course, anybody will, in a hospital, when they think about a room that where they do the surgeries and things like that, and they want them to be 100% free of any potential airborne contaminant, they can do that by pressurizing that space. And so we can do that for rooms that traditionally may not have been used like a surgery center, but now maybe the owner has deemed it, they want a safe room in the building. So
their boardroom, you know what I mean? So when you do have, I mean, the demand ventilation in a boardroom is one of the most important things anyway. I hate sitting in a boardroom and dozing off during an important meeting, or having people actually fall asleep.
Like
but
pressurizing all the offices and then letting, and then letting the hallways exhaust, right? Stuff like that. So that, if you're sitting in your office, you're not a return air for 6 offices. That's a bad practice. Because you know what I mean? Because now you're sucking all 6 people's stuff through your office to get to the return air. And, that's no good. So again, I think granular control of pressure will probably become a part of the design standards from the, depending on the use cases of the buildings. And no question we can do that. It makes, probably should have been doing it before anyways. I mean, call it the better way to move a fart around a building, right?
Nice.
There you go.
All right, Scotty Cochrane, man, I tell you what, this is fantastic. So if anything else you want to tell us about Cochrane before we hop off here, what you guys are up to?
Well, I do want to say that we've had a ton of success. We virtualized our training, and what our virtual training is where, you can do it from your office or your home. All you need is a computer with the internet connection, maybe some software, but what's important is we actually have live lab panels that you connect to over the internet. We got cameras on those panels, and we have a live instructor that's going to be with you, talking to you throughout the entire class. And frankly, it's as close to the real class experience as you can get. And I feel like it's been really effective. We've just gotten great feedback. So I'm really excited about our virtual training offer. And of course, Eric, anybody in your audience is welcome to use, our virtual training.
Fantastic. How do people get hold of you, Scotty? At Cochrane Supply. They were interested in that, want to get hold of it. CochraneSupply.com.
Come to CochraneSupply.com. All the information is there. And if we can help you guys in any way in terms of your training, we'd love to do that across the country.
Wow.
And all our great customers and everybody else out there, we just feel lucky that we're an essential industry, and we're just really happy to be talking and still successful right now. I mean, just lucky. Feel lucky.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron is from Canada, so we got the call of the wild going up there with Aaron. But listen, one final question. This is an important one. This is the one that our audience is paying the big bucks to hear the answer to. Which, Scott, everybody is sort of inside. So what has been your movie or show, series, or that you've watched at home that you would recommend to our audience?
Okay, thanks for that, Eric. So this was actually my 15-year-old daughter turned me on to this one. This is a Netflix show. It's called Outer Banks.
I'll check that out. I haven't seen that yet. What's the basic plot of it?
It's a teenager mystery show. It's a huge mystery. It's just chock full of surprises and different angles, and it's just been it was a joy to watch. So it was
Outer Banks. Okay, I got one for you if you haven't seen. Have you seen Money Heist yet? It's on Netflix.
I have not.
Dude, I told Kenny about it. He and his wife, they started at, I think it was like 4:00 in the afternoon on Saturday. And I think at midnight on Sunday night, they finished it up.
Is that a Netflix one as well?
Yes, in Netflix. Yeah, it's in Spanish, but it is really well done. Lots of twists.
Can we get a recommendation from Aaron? Can we get one from Aaron?
I hang around outside my backyard having beer, talking to my friends. So I'm avoiding the TV and the couch at all costs. I'm riding my bike and calling friends. You guys have each gotten late night calls. There's a few other people watching. So
yeah. So
I'm staying social, man. The extrovert needs it.
Boy.
Yeah. Well, Scotty Cochrane, man, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you. And CochraneSupply.com, man, one of the greats in our industry, Scott Cochrane. Thanks, buddy.
Woo-hoo.
Well, there you go. That's another week on Control Talk Now, your HVAC and Smart Building Controls videocast and podcast. Special thanks to our guest, Aaron Gorka from Ant Technologies and Aaron HVAC, and of course, Scott Cochrane, Cochrane Supply and Engineering. Appreciate those guys, and tune in next week with the man, the myth, the legend. Ken Smyers will be back. And until then, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, stay healthy. And this is the part where Kenny goes, "Indeed, Eric." And I go, "Indeed, Kenny Smyers." And then I go, "That's a wrap." And then we play the outro music. Boom.
wish I was above the center of attention, but I'm not. I wish I didn't have to give in to the pressure. Oh. I'm posting pictures, trying to be someone I'm not. It feels just like I'm lying to you. I fake it, stage it, trying to live some perfect life. I know I'm wasting time, 'cause I just wanna call my friends and see what they're doing tonight. It doesn't have to be so special. I try to be